Hey guys, Darren Carr here, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of our round review series. On today's episode, we will be reviewing round 9, and what a round it was. It was a round of a roller coaster for me, essentially. We saw some highs, we saw some lows, and we saw some very mediocre scores out there. But let's sort of just get into it. So how did I do this week? So I scored a 21.73, so pretty, like I said, pretty mediocre in terms of the scores that were out there. I think it's just hugely due to the fact that, again, not all my players sort of popped. Had some pretty good scores and had some pretty low scores for their sort of expectations. So still just waiting for that week where my players all sort of just put it together for 1 week and I see a big jump, but I don't know if that's coming. It's just been a very unusual year and can't seem to get going very much, so it is what it is. On paper, I feel like the team looks pretty good, just, not getting the right scores at the right time, I think. But how do we sort of do? Just going through line by line, I guess. You had Sheasel, very disappointing. We'll probably get into him a little bit more later on, what to do with him, whether he's a trade or not. I'm leaning towards that he might be. Nick Martin, absolutely killing it, looking like D1, if not, very high up there. Lockie Whitfield has now been tagged 2 games in a row. That's pretty concerning, but looking at his next couple of weeks, I don't think he's going to be too worried about that. Bulldogs won't tag him, and I doubt the Cats will either, so he should be good for the next 2 at least, and I don't think is a priority trade out. Young is just young. He's going to have these pro games in these tougher matchups, so I'm not too concerned there with him. He's just a hold. He looks pretty good. Bonner had a cracking game. I sort of expected this one from him, so yeah, really pleased to see that he put up a really good score. Season high for his year, so that's really good to see, and probably now can push him through to his mid-season bye. Oh, it's about 5 weeks, so it could be pretty tough. Got a couple tough ones. Next 2, easier one, and then a couple harder ones again there, so be a bit of interesting what people do there. I know a couple of people jumped off him a bit early, so maybe moved him on a little bit too early, but what's his break even now? 63, went up 32k, nearly at 300k for the season. That is amazing starting pick. But yeah, he did pretty well. D6 is where I had a bit of problems. Obviously, Graham out sort of screwed me over a little bit. I was relying on him on scores, on field, so ended up sort of looping around to see what I could get, and just ended up taking Blake Howe's score with a 48. Just thought that's not too bad. I could have, and I should have looped Garcia, who scored a 58, so only lost me 10 points, but for some reason I thought he was the sub, so I took the E off of him sort of last minute, not really checking the game properly, and yeah, Lord and behold, he's on field, he's actually playing, and yeah, that was sort of a bit of stuff up on my part, so lost probably 10 points there. Luckily, put it on Campbell anyway, and then that pretty much allowed me to loop him on instead of a Reed anyway, so that gained me 14 points. So at the end of the day, I probably gained 4 points overall in that whole looping fest. So take the wins where you can get them, I guess, is the main thing there. What else we got going here? So Zach Merritt, disappointing as my VC, his first sub-ton, so an 87. And like I said, even, while when other players are, hitting their strides, it just, the most reliable player just seems to drop off. It's just very unusual. Just can't seem to get them all going at the same time. Sorry if I'm a bit loud. I think my microphone was a little bit too close there, so I'll move you back a little bit. Zach Butters, his season high score, and yeah, that's sort of what we expected from him. Didn't cop it any attention in this game, which was a little bit surprising with how good that Port Adelaide were. So very interesting sort of coaching statistics for me. Strategy. I don't know what I was trying to say there. So he looks like a good buy. Obviously, Rosie's coming back now, so it could be a little bit interesting, but he's been scoring pretty well all season. Hasn't dropped too many sub scores, only that 79, which was a pretty poor one, but besides that, has pretty much had a ton every single game, so he's pretty consistent, really hasn't moved at all in terms of pricing, gone up 40k for the year, so probably about what we expected pre-season, honestly. Got Hawthorn this week, and his run's pretty good as well. Like Hawthorn and North, very easy matchups, and then comes into Carlton before his bye, and obviously that round 13 bye is very juicy. Bont hit his strides again this week, back to 26, obviously in a super easy matchup. Probably would have liked a little bit more from him, but you take 126 every day of the week. Be interesting to see how he goes over the next couple against the tougher matchups. I know a fair few people are looking at him this week just given how cheap he is, but I don't know. I'm still not super confident with him if I didn't own him. Coming into a couple tougher matchups, yeah, it's not the greatest thing I would have thought. He's been on a pretty good run recently. Look at that. That's pretty juicy, and just hasn't really put up any of those really good scores. So yeah, it's a bit of topping to anyone. Green was okay for what we sort of expected. This is what I sort of expected from him. I said he was probably going to be a bit more happy, just given that ankle injury. So had the 34 touches, was happy with that. Just wasn't really thirsty for the marks or the tackles. So I was happy with a 98. Did lose a bunch of cash and is going to be super cheap pretty shortly. He's going to be below 800k by next week, unless he can put up a massive score this week. But yeah, he's one to watch if you don't have him. Brought in Soligo this week, put up a 79, so wasn't super happy with that, but at the end of the day, that's what I've got to sort of expect from him. Had plenty of disposals, so he had 28 touches, just didn't really have many marks or even tackles in this game, which is what I sort of flagged with him a little bit. Just doesn't get it around. He's more of an impact player, right? He doesn't get a lot of those tackles and marks, but he has shown to have some sort of game where he can get those when it's sort of suited to him. So I'm hoping over the next sort of 4 weeks, which is what I picked him up for, he can put some ceiling scores up for me and be a good player that I can have until his bye. Jeremy Sharp killed it. Absolutely love him. He's probably my +3 this week, just given how good he was. And now he's pretty much a hold to the bye, I think. He's got 3 really good matchups. 2 really good matchups, and even Melbourne are a pretty good matchup for Wingman. So, yeah, he's just a hold. He's a good one there. McKercher and Closey, really good as well. Really had some luck with the midfielder rookies this week, so probably helped us teams that are probably lacking behind a little bit in terms of that. So, yeah, really pleased with that. McKercher just keeps getting it done. What do you have? He had 30 disposals again. Just, again, Darwin didn't get many marks, so expect him to go back up again. An 88 probably was a bit below par what we normally expect from him, especially because he had 30 disposals. Just not getting around as many marks as we sort of expected. Like, sort of expect 5+ easily on his given day. So big watch there. Max and English in there looks nice. English was probably a little bit disappointing on debut. Just 109. I thought this was sort of a 130 game for him quite easily, given his scoring history and how easy Richmond have been for a matchup in terms of ruckman and also midfielders. So, but at the end of the day, a 109 as captain, not too displeased with that. Got to take it. Flanders sub 100. It's one he's put up for a fair while, I think, since we've all sort of got him in. Easy matchup. I think he got rested a little bit in this game. Like, you see his time on ground dropped off a fair bit. I think he only played 50% time in that fourth quarter. So, not too much concern there. I think it's just probably a bit more of a rest, just given he's had pretty long extent playing. So, and he's 22. I didn't realize how young he was, but yeah, maybe he's just because he is a bit younger. Give him a quarter off or something like that. So yeah, he can recover. Heaney just gets it done. McRae in 88 was happy with that. Just need him to be consistent with that. Obviously, the easiest matchup in the league at the moment, and yeah, put up an 88. So not too harmed about that. Had more time on ground, which was pleasing to see. Just had no CVAs though, which was interesting. So hopefully his spot is pretty secure. I know there's some pretty big players that are knocking on the door trying to get into that team. So, like Sanders, 42 disposals in the whatever that league is. So, the VFL. So, Tom Power, 77. Not too disappointed with that. Is what it is. He's Well, that was with Will Phillips inside as well, so that could have been a lot worse. Something we probably didn't flag in the preview. Nat 5 put up another mediocre score, which is just very frustrating. 58 could have been a lot bigger. Had 6 free kicks against, so he just couldn't do anything right in this game. He got caught holding the ball, I think 3 or 4 times. 3 of them were in the first term. I think another free kick was for like a high tackle or whatever. And yeah, just couldn't do anything right. Just really looked off. Couldn't, put up a decent game for his mate Cam there. So pretty disappointing. I still think he's a hold until the bye though. Just given that nice bye, hopefully he can put up some decent scores for me. I know I'm being pretty stubborn with him, but again, the forward line it's bloody shocking. So I don't know what to do. It's not nice, and I think he's better than any of the rookies, even though the rookies did outscore him this week, or were very close. But yeah, that's how we sort of went this week. Jumped up a little bit in terms of rank. I think I went up a total of 61 points, so a 61 ranking, so it was very minimal movement. Not ideal for what I sort of wanted. Need to start moving a lot more, so I might have to start playing a little bit more unique to actually start moving. So, but that's how we sort of did. Hopefully he did a lot better than I did, because yeah, we need that's all I'm really gonna say. Alright, well, let's move into how each of the games and talk about some of the highlighted players. So Thursday night we had Carlton and Melbourne, really close game, 1 point by Carlton. Sam Walsh pretty much set the tone for the round with 143. He was massive with 34 touches and 11 tackles. Got a few marks in there as well with 3 and kicked a goal in behind as well. So he was really good. Have you picked him up 3 or 4 weeks ago when he came back? He's just been quite elite. Hasn't dropped below 100 yet, so he's really looking super consistent. I think technically he's the only one that's left on the ton run now, but if you probably can't count that too much, given that he didn't play for the first 5 or 6 games. So there's that. He's been awesome. Probably not worth a trade in my point of view. I think he's up to 960 now, so it's a bit expensive, and his run doesn't look that great. So obviously if you have him, it's a great hold. You have him, he should be super consistent, but I don't think he's one to grab. He's not value, and his run isn't that great. So it's probably one I just have to agonizingly sit and watch him dominate. Same with and we'll get into them a bit later, but like a Zorko for me. Patrick Cripps wasn't far behind him with 123, 35 touches, just probably lacked a few tackles to get to that same sort of ceiling score. He's been a really good pickup if you picked him up pretty early on. He's quietly having a pretty good season, back to his sort of Brownlow form. And it's sort of like what I flagged a couple of weeks ago, where it's just, they're running the 2 ruckman at the moment, so it's freeing him up a lot more to actually be a midfielder. So that's really good, and one I wish I jumped on a little bit earlier. Besides that, there wasn't really too many interesting ones here. Cheryl got injured again, so what does that spell for the rest of them? Maybe, obviously, Hewitt probably comes straight back in and just plays that role. Probably doesn't change anyone else's role too much, I would have thought, so no worries there. Harry Himmelberg, if you picked him up, probably had his first sort of low game, and that's what you sort of got to expect from these tall forwards. They're going to have games where they just go massive, and they're going to have games where they just get shut out and only kick 1 goal, and it's a sub 50. But at the end of the day, I don't think that's too bad. You take your highs, take your lows. The forward line is what it is, so that's not. I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd just look to hold him. Petrarca for Melbourne kicked 5 goals and put up 134, so that was really good from him. Broke his break even, so he was getting pretty cheap for us, but his role is what's concerning me at the moment. Not playing much midfield time at all. What was his CBAs? I'll look to bring that up. I know there's been some chatter that there is a possibility that he could get forward status. I highly doubt it. I think he has to play like 70+% in the forward line for the next 2 games. Next 3 games or 2 games? I think it might be 3 games, because we got it after round 6. Yeah, I think it might be after round 12 we get it. I don't know. It's somewhere around there. So it's either 2 games or 3 games. But he has to play a pretty substantial amount of time forward, which he's pretty much on track to do. Like if he continues this, he could get it. But I'm probably not really taking it into consideration too much. I think he'll keep holder just midfielder status. So that's a bit unfortunate. If you had him, is it worth just moving off of him? Probably not. You probably just ride the high, ride the lows. He's going to have these games where he does really well. They also have a really good fixture coming up, so and there's every chance that he gets just shifted back into the midfield, right? So I think he's worth just holding on to. His role hasn't been too bad in recent times, so maybe it was just an outlier in this game. So just hold on to him, I reckon. Where were we? So we had gone, put up a 109, saved that late, really. I think he had a massive last quarter where it was like 48 points. So anyone that had him VC sort of saved his score there, and I think that's a decent enough score to really take if you were there. There were some bigger players that you could have gone with. Like I think Nick Dacos is pretty a safe pick that you would have gone with. Even in English, I think those two, you would have taken that on if you had those two. Clary Oliver is the one to talk about this week. He is probably going to be the most traded in player. Looked really good in this game to the eye test for me. Role looks good. His time on ground's still not quite there. He's still averaging that 75%. So would like that to jump just over 80, and then that would be ideal. But his price is now moving in the right direction. Put back-to-back sort of tonish. His tackles look there. His thirst is coming back. So I think his time is right, the price is right, so I think it's just time to jump on with him. So he is definitely in my trade targets this week, and I think he should be for you as well. What else do I want to talk about Oliver? I think, like I said, the run is really good, so that's also a calculation that I put into my head. Maybe if he didn't have such a good run, then maybe I probably could have faded it, because it's not like I don't think he's got the ceiling scores in him at the moment. I think he's going to be just a consistent sort of 90 to 100 play, if not sneaks over to maybe 105, 110. I don't know if he can put up those 130s or 140s in him, but I'm sure he'll just absolutely smash it this week and put up a 150 on my head and make me look stupid. But I'd absolutely love it because I don't want to trade him in. Caleb Windsor, for anyone that's still holding him, just keeps ticking along. Now just keeps rocketing in price. It's 84, so another one of those players that I just never got on as a forward. My forward line would be looking so much better if I had the likes of a Windsor and a Wilson. Just don't have any of them, so I'm really struggling in the forward line. Anyone else here that's worth talking about? Howes, if you still have him, like myself, put up a 48, respectable. Went up a little bit of money, but his break even's getting pretty close now, so starting to make some plans to move him on. He's got the round 14 bye, I think. Yeah, Melbourne have round 14 bye, so still a couple of rounds away. Could you hold him? Definitely could, I think. But more than likely you'll probably be able to move him on pretty early on in the buys, I would say. He's got a bit of money on his head, I think 450k, so probably can move him on. Alright, let's get through the rest of some of the games. We've already spent 18 minutes and I've gone through one game. Love to chat. Alright, so Holmes did really well this game. 101, just super consistent, just not really hitting those ceiling scores. He's been a great pick though. Graham Myers, again, super consistent. I think he's one of those guys that we're going to pick up eventually. Just, even though he has like a shocking role, I just does not look fantasy relevant to me at all. Just given that he is so good with the ball, they like to feed him a little bit. So, would like to see his marks up a lot more and spread and get those marks and get those +6s rather than getting the hard ball and having it that way and being a bit more of he's more of a handball receive sort of guy rather than that chip over and get the mark. So would love that, because then he would easily push into the hundreds, so he'd be really good there. But I think he's really good in terms of picking him up. Obviously looks pretty secure on that top 6 forward. Probably not, he's not super value. I think he's high. What's his? Just look it up. Myers, is he 800k? No, just below 800k. So he's not typically value. His break even's pretty high up there. what's his run like? Hard, harder, easiest, and then hard again. So it's not great run up either. Round 14 bye isn't great. Yeah, he's just one. I think he's just going to be super consistent, no matter what. Like, look at what he's done. Had 2 lower ones within 70s, but has been pretty much, anywhere from an 80 to 110 guy all the way through. So I think he'll be pretty consistent, even against Port Adelaide, put up a 90. So you can't be too upset with that. And even in this game, they got absolutely thrashed in the first bit until they came back, obviously. But I think he's pretty good there if you're looking for a forward option. Darcy Cameron did get concussion in this game, so if you have him, maybe consider moving him on. He hasn't been super great this year in terms of his role. He's not really getting up the ground as much as we used to see. Thomas Stewart was really disappointing in this game. I just don't really know what was going on. He just looked like he was having a bit of a sook day. Like, just a few things weren't going his way, and he just sort of went into his shell a little bit. Just sort of gave up in the end. So just didn't get amongst it. 64. Probably one I'd look to move out. He just hasn't looked good at all this year. I think he's averaging maybe 80 at most. Like, he's just not the player that we sort of expected. What am I typing? Stewart. Yeah, dropped 150k for the year. That is shocking. 83. That is unbelievable from what we sort of expected. Terrible. So, yeah, I think he's pretty much an easy one to trade out. He's got a bit of money on his head. Could pretty much sideways trade him to anyone or even downgrade him. I think he's pretty much sideways trades to an Oliver at the moment. Cam Guthrie is an interesting one still. Put up 63. Only had the 57% time on ground and had a lot of CBAs. So I think he had like 22 CBAs. I don't know how he had that many, but only that little amount of game. But 67% time on ground. So his role's there. It's just his scoring and his time on ground was what the issue was. Not even scoring realistically. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Come back. His scoring was pretty good. 63 and 57% time on ground. If that was jumped up to an 80, that's probably 110 right there. So for those that jumped on, probably just hold fat. I know it's pretty frustrating, but surely his time on ground just gets bumped up unless there was an injury that I didn't see. I'm not really 100% sure. I did watch this game, so I didn't notice anything specifically. Besides that, we had Dempsey put up 49. Started well, just slowed down as he usually does. And Clark played up the full game. Just, 58% time on ground. 44, not too upset with that. He's actually moving in the right direction in terms of his price. So he's just going to keep sitting there until I think, I have spare time to move him on. I think I have other priorities, so he's just going to keep sitting there. Ollie Wines for the Port just sort of put up a massive score. If you jumped on him a couple of weeks ago when I said they have a really good run, then great on you. I wish I did it myself because he's been absolutely awesome, and I think he's going to be awesome until his bye. So it's probably a bit too late in terms of picking him up, though. Like, what's his price now? Over 800k, yeah. It's probably not worth it, but his run is juicy. Those next two are going to be really good for him, especially with Rosie out. That helped him a lot as well. Just good timing. Zach Butters did really well. We spoke about him already. Horn Francis, if anyone jumped him in, he's been really good in it. He looks really good, like in terms of I think he's more of a super coach player, but yeah, he's just so impactful. Just not racking up the disposals as everyone else does. Maybe in a couple of years when he gets a bit more status that, he can be a bit of an accumulator, but for now he's just a bit more of an impact player. Who else do we need to talk about in here? No one else. Vizentini, I know a few people jumped on him to sort of cover for Sweet this week. There's a bit of talk. I've spoken to a few Port mates this morning, and there's no guarantee that Sweet actually comes back in. Vizentini actually played that well that he actually may hold his spot, or maybe even worse, they actually bring both Sweet and Vizentini in this week, or bring Sweet back in, and they play both rucks this week. So that would be a really interesting situation for those that sort of did that. For me, I just have Sweet R3 now, and he's just going to sit there, hopefully going to generate some cash. If he doesn't play, then I'll probably look to move him on this week, because yeah, there's probably not much point holding him for, where he's may only get 2 games after this weekend. So that is what it is. I think that's pretty much it for this game. No one else too fantasy relevant, so we'll just keep moving on. Alright, Fremantle were defeated by Sydney Swans in a pretty big thrashing, pretty much. Sharpie, top scorer for the Freo Dockers, was absolutely great in that last quarter. He kicked 2 goals, 28 disposals, 10 marks. He's just been so good, and like I said, he's just going to be a hold until the mid-season buys, if not even further, if he can keep putting up these scores. I'm not going to expect that from him, but I think he's just been super consistent. Only flag will be if there's some wet weather coming up, then he could drop a fairly low score, but I think we're getting close to that point now where we're allowed to loop some players, so if that was to happen, then you just throw him on the bench, and I think you look at his score first, or you just play a bit safe. You take someone else's score if they put up a decent sort of 60 to 70 or whatever, and you can just take that and be a bit safer. So we've got that flexibility there. Caleb Sarong really slowed down in that last quarter. I think he was on like 75 at half time, and only just scraped to 107. So that's good for the non-owners like myself, where he could have easily put up a 140, but only just scraped to 107. So happy there. As if you're an owner, then you'd be fairly disappointed. But again, he's just going to do this. Didn't really cop too much attention, I thought. I think what's his name? Rampy. Where's Ramp? Not Ramp. Is it Rampy? No, Rowbottom. Sorry, Rowbottom sort of just stood next to him in the last half. Just sort of gave him a bit more of an accountable role. So it wasn't like a full hard tag, just trying to bump off the ball, just running with him. So it's just a hold. Awesome buy. So you're just gonna hold him for now, and he's a premium. So unless something changes, you're just gonna hold him for the year. Luke Ryan is one I'm very interested in this week because he has such a good matchup for defenders. He has St Kilda coming up this week, and he could easily put up a 160 score. He did save this one late. I think he had like a 60-point last quarter somehow. Just ridiculous. He's just ridiculous with how he can score sometimes. Obviously, relies heavily on marks and doesn't really tackle too much. Gets a lot of kicks as well. Doesn't really handball too often. So, also takes a lot of kickings. What did he take for the weekend? Let's have a quick look. Because I think the Cats, not the Swans were pretty accurate. So I don't think he got to take too many in. What am I looking at? Oh, let's see, guys. Where's my kickings? There we are. Sorry, guys. And we're talking Fremantle. So it took 6 kick-ins, and he played on 5. So that's where he hugely relies on a lot of his points as well. So if he has a few of those lower ones, then he doesn't get the huge marks. Needs to learn to play on a little bit more. Hasn't played on 4. It's not good. Moving on, Brayshaw put up a 98 if you have him. Not too bad with that one. Hayden Young, we spoke about him. Not too concerned there. Not moving off of him. Luke Jackson put up a 73 for being solo. Probably a little bit disappointing. But then again, Grundy is a bit of a tougher matchup in terms of that. Both ruckmen didn't really put up anything massive. I don't think it was a huge game for ruckmen in general. We spoke about Fife. I'm looking to hold him, even though he's losing coin. We spoke about him a little bit. Did have a few marks in that. I think he had like 3 or 4 marks in that second quarter, so which was pleasing to see. And John Clark was sort of the talk of this game, where he got absolutely tagged by James Jordan. So it seems like it's going to be a bit of a theme going into the next few games. So I guess we sort of just keep an eye on James Jordan, who he may have coming up in terms of our distributors. So just one to keep a note of. Besides that, I don't think we have too many people to talk about here. Moving on to Sydney Swans. Heaney, his role's awesome still. I don't think he has moved at all, so he's one just to hold on to. Luke Parker surely comes in this week, you'd have to think, though. He's played 3 weeks in the VFL, absolutely dominated every single game. So I'd have to think he comes in. I wouldn't understand why he's not coming in. Just watch there for Heaney. I think everyone has him at this point, so there's no real worry about that. Gordon put up a 95. I think he slowed quite heavily in this game as well. I think he was on track for quite a big one. Just, yeah, didn't quite get there, so that's quite frustrating for owners. 96% time on ground is ridiculous, though. Grundy put up a poorer one, as we sort of expect when he's not playing at the SCG. I don't think it's too much of a worry, though. He's playing back at the SCG against De Koning this week, I think. I think he's playing against De Koning, so I think he'll be fine. Wouldn't worry too much there. Anyone else want to talk about? Taylor Adams, if you sort of jumped on him, he's been severely disappointing. Time on ground's getting up there, just the role's not great. Still playing a lot half forward, so not really picked up for what we sort of expected from him in the pre-season. So one probably just off the list for now. And Roberts was the anger that came out of this game. A lot of people still had him and still fielded him. Just the role does not look good. He's moved on to the wing now that what's his name? Jake Lloyd has moved back again, so has lost a lot of his role. I think he's not even taking many kick-ins anymore. I'm looking at these ones. I think he took a couple and that was about it. Yeah, 3. Where he's usually a bit higher than that. So, pretty disappointing, but definitely time to jump off him. I think he's probably going to be the number 1 trade-out target this week. Moving on to the third game. Not too much to talk about here. So Lloyd Meek was an interesting one if you picked up him. He's gone back-to-back 110 pluses. He's been really good in terms of our ruckman. I'm obviously Hawthorn supporter, so I think he's been really good. And I always thought he had a bit of a fantasy game about him. He just needs that consistent role and being able to do this. He's not got to hugely rely on a lot of disposals because he's not sort of that ruckman. Loves the hit out and loves the tackle. So, yeah, he's going to have a few up and down games for sure. Jai Newcomb is a one to watch. Obviously, he's been slowly gaining some form back after the poor start that he had in the season. Is moving now in the right direction in terms of his price, but when you have the likes of an Oliver that is cheaper than him, you're still going in Oliver every day of the week. Carl Amon put up a decent score with a 111. He's just very up and down. Moore put up a 71. You're happy. We take it as a forward. Not too displeased with that. Kicked 2 goals. Didn't get as many marks in this game, so I just don't think he got as much freedom. So it's just going to happen. We know how damaging he can be, so opponents are going to put some time on him every now and then. Moving on to the Saints, this is where we saw some absolutely ballistic scores. Marshall, my boy that I traded out a couple of weeks ago, it's hurting me a lot. 164. And that's what I sort of expected. What he could have done if he didn't get injured. Didn't trade him out. I shouldn't have traded him out. I should have backed him in to get better. But all the signs were there to move off of him. The support was there. The injury was there. Just not the right move, unfortunately. And has been my season killer. I've just been caught up in this rook rotation ever since. He's just been it's been one that's killed my season, unfortunately. Jack Steele looked back to being fit, had no strapping on his knee again this week, and looked very free, obviously moving around, getting a lot of marks, and just ballistic amount of tackles. I think he was on like 6 or 7 at half time, just ridiculous. I always think this is not sustainable, but he just does it every single week, so yeah, he's just unreal. Bonner put up a huge score, as these backline guys did. Wangan and Miller up beside him with a 119. You're really happy with both of those. Just, so much freedom in the back there. Windhager, if you picked up him a couple of weeks ago, he's been really good. Obviously increasing in price. Probably too late in terms of picking him up unless you're really desperate. I don't think his role's not going to stay super consistent for much longer. What was his role actually? I thought he might have moved out a little bit given that Sinclair's running in there a little bit more, but no, he's still about just about 60%, so nothing too much to worry about there. It's just when Brad Crouch comes back, whether he's sort of straight in or whether he plays, in the twos for a little while to get some match fitness behind him. He's due back in a couple of weeks, so that's one to watch. Wilson, another one that's killed my season. Just trading him out after round 3, he has just gone absolutely fuck you, and I think he's averaged like close to 80 in that time in the forward line. So I've just lost points on points every single week with him there. Sinclair was one that a lot of people traded in. Obviously, was a big talking point last week, whether it was Dacos or Sinclair. I was obviously always saying it was Dacos. I was not a fan of Sinclair, so hopefully, with a bit of my advice, you guys avoided that one. There's nothing wrong with his role. Like, his role was there. He's had 68% time there. He's just, I think, tougher matchup. He just sort of got a bit of attention. It wasn't a tag. It was just sort of more of an accountable role. Didn't let him just run free. He dropped some absolute sitters with, a few marks. I think probably 2 or 3 marks there. So probably, realistically, should be closer to sort of a 75, if not an 80. But yeah, just given a bit of unluckiness in the way fantasy is played, he just didn't really get there. Probably just a hold. You brought him in. You got to back him in from here, at least until the bye. See it out and see how you go, I'd say. Garcia put up a 58 for those that needed to field him, so that was really, really respectable, going along nicely. I think that's all we need to talk about there. I don't think there was any too many rookies that were involved. No one really got Hayes. Peyton, not really. And who else is there? That was a bit hasty, maybe not, but no. Moving on. We got Essendon and we got the GWS. So Nick Martin just keeps getting it done. Really happy with him. Merritt, like I said, first sub-ton, now going back with the coin. Below $1 million now, so he's getting pretty cheap. If you're looking to jump on him, he should be back to being pretty consistent. His role's pretty good. Goldstein, did see a few people pick him up. I'm not really sure what the thought process was. Maybe just to loop him around. But yeah, he did pretty well for those that jumped on him, making some coin. Caldwell did pretty well for a forward, 79. You take that. He's going backwards in coin, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much. You just want points on field. Darcy Parish was the biggest letdown so far this round, I thought. Obviously, I was quite high on him last week. I was planning to get him all week, but then I got sort of forced into picking up English instead, which meant I had to go with a Saligo instead. I'm not really sure what happened to him. He seemed to be running around and was all in the right spots, just the ball sort of wasn't floating to him. What was his CBAs at the end of the day? I think he did drop in CBAs a little bit. I'm not really sure what the cause of that was. Yeah, dropped below 50%. Sort of Stringer up there again, so that's not going to be consistent. I don't know what their game style is, why they keep going up and down with some of these players, but back him in. Like I said, I think they have a really good run, so I think it's just worth holding him. Didn't lose too much coin on your head. Like, his break-even was pretty low to begin with, so not too concerned there. Hopefully you can just hold him. I'd say back him in. Tom Green, highest scorer for their side, just got kind of badly beaten and wasn't really too much to score about. Really, just a lot of mid scores. 34 touches, didn't get many marks or tackles. Saw the return of Cogs. He did pretty good in his return game. Didn't really have too many effects, I thought. I think maybe Kelly got pushed out a little bit more. Let's have a quick look at CBAs now that he's back. So Cornelia was number 1 in there. Green probably dropped a little bit, but maybe that's just a bit of management in terms of his role. I think his time on ground was a little bit lower than what he would have normally been. Yeah, 72% time on ground, so he did get managed a little bit, so if that's another reason, he just didn't crack the ton. Where were we? CBAs. Callum Ward was in there a fair chunk as well, which was a little bit weird to see. I first thought it was sort of like a tagging role on Merit, just sort of keeping him accountable, but I thought, he sort of worked both ways, so it wasn't too much concern there. But yeah, Kelly was the main one that took the brunt of the Cornelio return, so if you had him, then maybe it's time to jump off. Lockie Whitfield, again, got a lot of attention this week. I think it was by Guelphy, who quietly put up a really good game, had three goals. So it's sort of just a blueprint now that they're going to put attention to him. But like I said, I don't think it will happen over the next 2 weeks. So I think he's fine to hold and should, but if he is pretty cheap, would I be buying into him? Maybe wait a week because, his price is still going to get much lower. He's probably not the right time to buy him right now. I still think he's going to be around that sort of top 6 mark from here on out. It's just depending on how many games he's going to get attention in, unfortunately. Then we had a few rookies down here that didn't really do a whole lot. Dusty Jones, 33, Cadman, 25, and obviously Harvey Thomas, who was a sub, as 14. So his time is up and needs to be moved on. Moving on to the Richmond and Western Bulldogs. A few fantasy relevant people in here. So Bolton put up a decent score if you picked him up a couple of weeks ago. Very up and down, as you sort of expect. Short on his return, 74, probably a bit disappointing again. Just seems to be that sort of guy at the moment. Just isn't getting a huge amount of fantasy points. And Campbell put up a nice 68 for those that are still holding him, like myself. Was really happy with that, and now he's got his cash going in the right direction again. Yeah, happy to I've held him. Latufu, or whatever you want to call him, is there. He scored a 40, so he's still making some decent coin if you had him. But Western Bulldogs had a realistic game in terms of score, put up nearly 1900 in terms of their total their fantasy points for the game. Trelaw absolutely went ballistic. Was sort of all written on the wall that he was going to have a really good game. And he probably needs some consideration now, given how good he has been so far this season. I think, what is he actually averaging? 112. Which is just ridiculous. It's just so dangerous playing with that sort of player. Could have an injury at any point. Just needs to turn the wrong way and he's gone. Just, yeah. Wouldn't be trading him in, that's for sure. I don't think. He's way too overpriced now, and yeah, could definitely have a injury at any point in time. I know it's playing a pretty straight bat and playing a bit risk-free there, but yeah, I just couldn't do it in my eyes. Richard put up a really good score after coming back in and playing a lot of CBAs, I would have thought, replacing that liberal role. Yep, 93%. So they had a really tight midfield there. Bontempelli, Trelaw, and Richards. Saw the likes of McRae got like 0 CBAs, which is very interesting to see. So has dropped off a little bit in terms of his role. Whether that affects him in terms of his fantasy output, we'll wait and see, but last week it didn't really make much of a difference. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Where are we at? Bontempelli, yep, happy with him. He's now moving in the right direction in terms of his price, so look to maybe jump on soon. But again, his run isn't great. English, I think he's a pretty good trade-in target for the next coming weeks. He's got Briggs this weekend, so I think he could go big again this week. So he'll be very highly in my captain considerations. And just looking at his run for the remainder of the year, it's pretty good. I think it's probably better than a Marshall's if you're looking to upgrade, either a Cherry or a Grundy. I think these two could go really well, but I think probably Gorn's above both of them. Dale did really well with 104. You're pretty happy with that. He's still making a bunch of coin. He's just been, a really good pickup. We spoke about McRae. Garcia, if you still had him, put up a respectable score. I won't try and attempt this guy's name because I am hopeless with that name. What was his first name? Joel. We'll call him Joel. Good old mate Joel. Put up a 62 and is probably highly in my considerations for a downgrade option this week. Put up a 62, so really looked good in there. Has mid-forward status, so quite flexible there. Hopefully he gets a bit of a run in the team for a little while. The only obviously flag is that Beveridge as a coach, and we've got Riley Sanders in the two, so at any point they could easily switch that up. So big watch there. I'll probably touch on that a little bit more in my trades video on Wednesday. Moving on to Suns and North. So Miller put up a 108. Very low scoring game in terms of this game. It was like 108 was the top score, and that's sort of what we expected in Darwin. Just obviously a bit wetter. Not it was a fair few marks, but just maybe not as much of a tackle fest as we once thought it would be. So you're pretty happy with him if you still have him. Closey absolutely got blessed there with 100. He's making bulk coin, not time to move off him yet. Flanders, we already spoke about, had a little bit lower time on ground, just probably through management, or could be that the return of Sexton maybe took a little bit of time off of him. So, bit of a watch there in terms of how those two go next to each other. Speaking of Sexton, I don't mind him as a trade-in. I would probably like to see it for at least probably another week or so, just to make sure that it is cemented that he's going to be back there. Obviously, we've seen the likes of the Kosher script be flung back forward. Seems like I've sort of run out of ideas, and they've sort of just gone back to the initial plan where Sexton's sort of that guy next to Flanders, and those two will just work together a little bit. They both had pretty good disposal efficiency from what I looked at, so hopefully it's definitely going to stick for another week, but he's so cheap that you can wait one week. I think he's 500k or something like that, so it's just not the right time to be trading in these guys where there is a lot of risk to them. Obviously, we have seen an 80 from him in the first couple of weeks, and it was against North, so maybe wait until... even this game's not super hard, so maybe wait a week or two just to have a really good look at him. If you're that desperate, then I'd support it, but definitely not ideally. Noah Anderson, this is what you just get from him every so often. You're going to get really highs, you're going to get some really lows, and eventually it just averages out to be, a mid-100 score. So really just needs to have that consistency behind him to be one of the top elite fantasy players. And that's about it. I know a few people traded Lynn Rogers a couple of weeks ago. He's just been very up and down. I think he's gone like 20, 50, 20, 50. So hold on. He's going to be a roller coaster, as he will be. Moving on to North. Slowly getting less fantasy relevant as more and more players get traded out. But we had Fisher, who top scored. Sorry, not top scored. He scored a 103. Back-to-back tons, 34 touches. Lower mark, so this definitely could have been a much bigger game, but Darwin didn't help. So he is one to watch and definitely could be a decent trade-in if you're looking there. Obviously forward, so that's pretty handy. Like I said, I didn't mind him when he was averaging 70 to 80s in my forward line. It was just unfortunate that he was a sub at one stage. McKercher, anyone that traded back into him would have been pretty pleased. I'm lucky that I've been able to hold him, so he's been pretty good. Making a bunch of cash and looks to be a hold for a little while longer, and if not for a fair while longer until sort of luxury season, to be honest. Tom Power, 77, pretty happy with that at the end of the day. What was his role like is probably something I need to check. I think it was pretty 50-50. Yeah, so 50-50 split with Tom Power, not Tom Power, with Will Phillips, so not too much to worry about there. As long as he has around that 50%, I'm pretty happy. Puts up, decent 70s, but definitely one to watch. If you don't have anything, then maybe you could just avoid the risk, because there is definitely a possibility that he just does have a poor game and, has a 40 written all over him. So if you have nothing better to do, then definitely could look at moving him off. As long as you're getting the upgrade on the other side, I'd definitely support it. Harry Sheezel was the one that we probably need to spend some discussion on, because he absolutely looks shocking in this new role that he is in. So looking at his CBAs, 29%. That's not what I've signed up for. I expected him to play sort of bulk midfield, not this half-forward bullshit that he's doing. So he is highly in my considerations to be moved on, because he's going to lose a bulk of cash. Like, he's already dropped, 50k this week? 52k this week. Break even 167. Does have a pretty good matchup in Essendon, but they're actually quite hard in terms of, general forward. So I'll call him a general forward. North, Essendon, and Port before his buy. So, and even West Coast Collingwood after that. So I am personally looking to move off of him. It's a bit of a riskier play in my view, just given that, if he does get shuffled back again because they realise that he's just no good at this other end, then you've pretty much jumped off a player that can do 120, right? And you're going to have to pick him up in, say, 2 or 3 weeks' time when he's bottomed out in cash anyway. So it's wasting of some trades, but I think it's sort of the right move. I haven't heard any chatter that he is going to be moved out of this role. I think, again, North are just going to continuously play around with their side until something that sort of sticks to the wall and works for them. But I'm playing a bit more aggressive, given how far back I am. I wouldn't probably suggest it to those that are up there, fighting for a Hilux or in the hat territory to jump off of him, just because it's probably not the safe play. You want to play a bit more of a straight bat at this point in time, because there's still so long of a season to go. You just want to still stay in the range, and hopefully just a few things go your way that you keep making those jumps and eventually find yourself number one. Don't try and separate yourself from the pack too much just yet. There's still so far to go, and there's definitely some more bullets to come. So just let the dominoes fall for now, and keep following on. So I'd look to hold him, even though he's going to lose some cash. Some brave coaches will jump off, and it may play in their favour, but there's every chance that it could swing back the other way as well. So maybe hold one more week, and then I think there'll be a mass jumping off next week if he continues these pretty shocking scores. Darwin obviously didn't help, so he should be back under Marvel next week, under the roof, so definitely could be a lot better for him. It's just these marks and these tackles didn't do the job for me, and I'm not looking at the eye test. I'm just saying no, I'm not having any of that, so just trying to back my gut a little bit there and not trying to overthink it too much. So I'm pretty confident I'll trade him out. Moving on though, hopefully that clarified all the situations there. Cherry put up his first really bad score, 57. I know a lot of people are probably looking to jump off him this week if you didn't already, and I do think it's a pretty good move. He's been solid so far this season. What's his run like in terms of a ruckman? Have a quick look. So North, if I can click the right one, god damn. So he has Essendon this week, so that's a pretty tough matchup with Goldstein. So that's not too bad. Then Port the week after, which has typically been a pretty easy matchup, but I guess with the likes of Sweet and Soldo in the last couple of weeks have jumped that up a little bit. So maybe it could be worth just holding on to his buy. The problem is, from what I can see, is like where you're jumping off to, you're always trading into a player that's going to have that buy layered on. So you might as well jump off now and then get those, decent scores. Like jumping off now this week to probably a Gawn. If you don't have a Gawn, I think he probably has the best run of the lot of the ruckman. So you're looking at, Marshall. He's got 2 harder ones before his bye. You're looking at English. He's got 3 harder ones before his bye. But then you're looking at the back end of the year, right? You want them to be hold. So looking at English, he's got a pretty solid run through the end of the bye. Nothing too fancy, just pretty up and pretty neutral, I would say. I think Port typically have been a pretty easy. North pretty neutral. Geelong have typically been an easier one, so it'll chop and change every so often. Whereas we look at a Marshall, again probably more on the worst end, with 2 harder matchups, with a couple of easy ones thrown in there. Then you've got, what's his name, Max Scorn, who, again, probably more on the harder end in terms of what you're looking for, but he has a better run until he's bye. So it's pretty give or take here and there. Do you run with Gorn until sort of luxury season, then you sort of jump off to an English later on, or do you just pick up English now, maybe take some few lower scores in the coming weeks, and then you're good for the rest of the season? I don't know. I'm sort of stuck with both, so I'm not looking to trade out. I'm sort of done with the whole ruck situation at the moment. I just want to hold them, and hopefully that just pays dividends, and let everyone else sort of figure it out. Where are we at? I don't mind Cherry being traded out for sure. Be interesting to see what coaches do this week in terms of, do they hold him, do they trade him? Because I think it's not too much of a big jump to sort of go from him and the Roberts up to anyone you sort of want. He's made a lot of coin. It's only going to go backwards now, so probably a good time to jump off. And Hardeman's just highlighted there because I think a few people jumped on him a couple of weeks ago. He's been pretty solid down there. 54 minutes. I still got 2 games to go through. God damn. All right, Nick Dacos for Collingwood, who beat West Coast. Had a really good game. Obviously, this is the one we highlighted all preseason over the last couple of weeks. So, did exactly what we thought. 36 touches, 5 marks, 7 tackles, kicked a goal. Was a really good captain option if you went with him. Still probably a pretty high trade in target, I think. Probably doesn't have the best run in terms of players. and does have a few returning superstars next to him, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I still think he's going to be sort of top D1 now that Sheasel's gone, so he could be D1, D2 for sure. Richards is a good rookie downgrade. It'd be a bit interesting to see how he goes in terms of holding his spot. I know there are a few injuries at Richmond, but they're definitely getting a fair few returns, so definitely look out for teams. But yeah, he'd be one I'd be personally grabbing if he holds a spot. McRae was an interesting one. Did kick 3 goals to get it to a 71, so it wasn't super great. I would like to see him get a lot more of those, a lot more disposals and, tackles and stuff like that. But let's see his role. Did he have any CBAs? Surely he did. He's a midfielder. 13%. Yeah, okay. That's not what we want. So I'm personally just avoiding him until he has a good role. Sullivan is another one that I know a lot of people jump on him last week, so he's been a good pickup. And probably one that you could jump on this week as well. Again, very similar to the others. Need to watch out for the teams because they do have a lot of returning stars that will play in the best 22. Eagles are nice and easy. Harley Reid is the only one that's worth talking about here in my view. So put up 54. Probably time for him to go now. I think his break even is quite high. What's his break even? 63. So yeah, perfect timing. 63 average. Hasn't gone over 63 much. He's put up 67, 70, 78, 81 and 80. So has gone over that a couple of times, but nothing amazing. So I think it's a pretty good time to go. His next couple of weeks are pretty tough as well. Like Melbourne are pretty tough. Yeah, so don't mind it, but yeah, definitely time to move him on if you can. It's just who you're going to again. You need to fill that midfield, that forward spot. Sorry, I'm starting to stumble over my words. Been talking for an hour. So we'll move on to the last game, and then we'll touch on a few other points before finishing off for today. So Dawson, 118. Really happy with that. If you have him, nothing wrong with his role. Did really well. Should have kicked the match-winning goal there. Just overhooked it a little bit. He's a really good trading target. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Matt Crouch, if you still own him, I know a few that do. He's just slowly getting it done and been really consistent after that hold that you had with him. Got an awesome run as well, so I'd just be holding him for now. Laird's been quietly getting it done. Slowly starting to become on the radar, but just a lot of time on ground, like 68% time. What's going on there? That's not the Laird we know. He's a much more athletic beast than that. I don't understand what's going on, so I just want nothing of it at the moment. 1 second, guys. My boy Saliga I brought in this week, 79. Did have the team high disposal count with that 28 alongside Laird. It's just that he didn't get many of the marks or tackles, unfortunately. So I do expect him to be a little bit better in the coming weeks, so not too concerned there. We saw the likes of Rankin put up 104. Don't think he's super relevant. Relied on 3 goals there. We saw Daniel Curtin put up an 8, which was pretty disappointing. I think he played a fair bit of game, I thought. 38%. So he got taken out at half-time just after doing nothing, really. So that's pretty disappointing for those that brought him in a couple weeks ago. I think he'll probably spend a bit of time in the 2s now until he proves himself again. Moving on to the final team in Brisbane. So Dunkley put up 114. Anyone that jumped on him a couple weeks ago, he's been super good, or even started him. He's been awesome. He's in my my trade targets for this week. Probably not. I probably won't get him myself, but I do think for other people he's really good. Zorko did slow down a lot in this game. I think he was on like 75 or something like that at half time and just had a bit of a quiet one. So limited the damage. He's just been super good and just too expensive for me to grab at the moment, even though it would shore up my forward line for sure. There has been some talk that he may be rested this week. I doubt it, honestly. I know he's 35, but he's got such a bruise-free sort of game at the moment. He shouldn't need too much of a rest. He's just sort of playing kick to kick at the moment. Reveal is another good trade-in target in terms of a rookie downgrade. His job security is pretty solid. His scoring potential is probably just the one thing that isn't quite up there. His low time on ground, which is pretty disappointing. I know he's young and like that, but he's not super young. I thought he was still like 35. Not 35, sorry. He's still older, mature age, isn't he? 23, so he's not super young. Richmond this week as well, so probably one I'd look to jump on. But we'll go over that a little bit later. And Lohman's just highlighted there. If you jumped on him a couple of weeks ago, he's been a pretty good cash cow. I think he's probably pushing into the 400Ks now. But that sort of does it for all the highlighted players. So, what else do we need to talk about here? We'll just talk about some of the main trade-in targets I think for this week. Just a quick highlight of what you sort of can expect for the trade video. So, number one, obviously, Clayton Oliver is going to be mostly talked about this week. Obviously, he has the sugar hit in West Coast this week, so expect probably a pretty decent 120, hopefully. If he has a ceiling score, that's what I'm sort of expecting. The price is right. He went up, 3K this week, break even to 74, so he should be really good from here on out. His body looks fitter. His role is a lot more secure now in terms of, he's probably in the Melbourne good books, so he should be getting a lot more ball in there. Come on, load please. Yeah, his roll's back to 80%, whereas, in the first half of the season it was pretty lower. So, happy with his roll now. So I just think the price is right. His run also looks pretty good, so let's just have a look at that. Don't usually look at it on here, but we'll have a quick look. So Melbourne. So I would say easy one this week, couple of tougher ones, well, typically tougher ones. Collingwood typically it's an easier one. North obviously an easier one, and then probably maybe people's expectations are that he would become the top 8 forward midfielder again. I probably don't quite have the same expectation. I probably just expect him to, make some decent coin if he can get back to some, his 105 sort of form, somewhere around there. I'd be happy with. Even 100, like his price up fairly low, I thought. So, he's 720k. So, he's going to make some decent coin if he can average, this 90 areas. So, I just think he's going to be decent enough to field until sort of luxury season, and then we can move him on. So, don't have too high of expectations. He hasn't shown a huge ceiling just yet, and there's every chance that he does drop a few of these lower games, these lower scoring games where maybe just doesn't go his way. He's still getting a lot of free kicks against, which is sort of a concern for mine. Not really sure what's going there, just maybe confidence in terms of himself. So yeah, hopefully he can turn that confidence around and start being a bit more careful in terms of his challenges. So, but I still think he's going to be the number one trading target. Number 2, I had Jordan Dawson. I know he is expensive, but I think the run he's going on is sweet, and yeah, he's going to be awesome. So if you can get on him, I'd highly recommend it. Obviously, he's been super consistent all year, besides sort of one game. So yeah, I'd definitely be jumping on him, and he's going to put up some decent captain scores for you pretty shortly. So yeah, spend the money, I think, is awesome. Number 3, I have Zach Butters there. Can't trade Butters because I have him on my team. Finally showed a bit of a ceiling against the Cats. It's also just playing into the fact that round 13 bye, good run. I think I've spoken about it plenty of times in the past couple of weeks. I've been recommending him for a few weeks. So if you don't have him, I think he's a great pickup. Same with a Sarong. Again, more expensive. Couple decent matchups, and so I think is good. Obviously, great buy, as we've spoken about many times. So all that we're sort of doing now, we've got 2 weeks until we sort of hit the buys. So we're sort of just really setting ourselves up for those buys. So looking where you're heavy, trading out those sort of players, make that your line bull. Okay, I wanted to get these 2 players out. Which one goes first? Okay, this I'm heavy in this buy. Get him out, and target these guys in the last sort of buys, if not round 13. Is obviously the easiest one. So That's all I wanted to say there, I think. But yeah, I think Sarong's obviously a great pickup. He's going to be hold for the year. I've thrown Dunkley in there at 5. I know these are probably more expensive guys, but I do really like these guys. Just given we've identified that they have a good run, so these next two are great. Even in the back end, like not too bad ones before a couple tough ones. So I do really like Dunkley there as well. It's just the fact that he has a 12 bye has probably put him a little bit lower. I know a lot of us are pretty heavy in there, so he could be probably a target, say after his buy, and we want to trade into. Besides that, I had English or Marshall in there for. I can't do that either. If you're looking for Ruckman, I think both of them are great. But if you don't have Gawn, I'd probably recommend him over all of them. Just given his run is a little bit better. He's going to put up some more captain scores, so there's going to be a lot more of a captain option for you rather than these two. I think a lot of these guys play a little bit later on rather than a VC on max. The price is a little bit of a difference. I think Marshall's a bit lower. He's the cheapest of the lot now with, still, 960. So it's not much of a difference between him and Marshall. Him and English. The only other point I wanted to sort of talk about today before I finish off was really identifying what the easiest matchups are. So, talking about top 5, we could even look in DFS here. They've sort of outlined it pretty easily for us. So in the last 5, you've got Geelong, the easiest sort of matchup as we sort of identified. For some reason Melbourne have sort of popped up in the last 5. I'm not really sure what's going on there. They've been typically a bit of a hard one. But a nice feature I actually liked here with this now that it actually shows you who's scored well. So I think these numbers are slightly inflated with the big matchup against Carlton on the weekend. Obviously we saw the likes of Walsh and Cripps go massive. Thomas Dow had a pretty good game, so that inflates the numbers there. Saw Atkins go pretty big. I think a lot of this is just, some role changes as well, so it is pretty inflated. I probably wouldn't rely on these too much. You got to take some of your own thinking into account as well. You can't just purely rely on the numbers, so there's always some reason behind it. We saw West Coast have been pretty poor in the last 5 as well. Besides that, you have Richmond, who are very close, 8 plus, and even North's only 1% there. I also like to look at the 10 because that shows the whole year. If it wants to load, so you can easily say that Geelong have been the easiest matchup so far this season. Hawthorn up there as well, and then you got West Coast. So, oops, didn't mean to do that. So really, it's just targeting those really good matchups, and I'd say that Richmond are the easiest matchup so far this season. I think they quite comprehensively have given up plenty of points. They don't seem to run a tag either, where these other teams have are prone to running a tag. So like your Norths, your Hawks, even the Cats run a tag here and there. Eagles are probably another one that don't quite run a tag, but yeah, so they could be quite up there. But I've got Richmond number 1. They just don't seem to care at all. So really target those matchups. I've got Cats number 2. They've just been proven that they are the easiest matchups so far this season. Got Eagles number 3. Just like I said, are less prone to put a tag on somebody, and are slowly getting beaten worse and worse in terms of fantasy points. Hawks are number 4, just again flagging the tag risk with some of those guys. And I had North number 5. So it's really just sort of recalibrating your thinking. Sometimes we get caught up in last year Eagles are the easiest matchup, North are pretty close behind them, and then maybe Hawks are there. But it's really just been recalibrating your brain to be like, okay, no, actually Richmond are the easiest ones, and the Cats are also there as well. So it's not only looking at Pacific matchups, you got to look at runs as well. So I think what I've identified is that some runs are better than others in terms of who have these. So looking at Adelaide specifically, you got West Coast, Hawks, and Richmond all in the next sort of 4 weeks. Even Collingwood are pretty easy as well. Let's have a look at them. Pretty neutral at the end of the day. So, but they have been given up on the day. So obviously really like, where am I? Sorry. Really like their run. So number, 3, 4, and then 1. So pretty good there. Who else did I like? Brisbane. Next 2 are really good. Obviously number 1 and number 4. Can't go wrong there. Got Melbourne, who have West Coast this week, so pretty easy. But after the bye, they go North, West Coast. So pretty good one there too. Who else did I have there? Port was another one that we identified a couple of weeks ago. So they just come off Geelong being number 2. Hawthorn number 4, and then North number 5. So pretty good run. Who else we got? Richmond. There's just no one at Richmond that we're sort of considering. Maybe if you had Baker, hoping for his return this week. He's got Geelong and then Hawthorn before his bye. So it's really just looking at the fixture and identifying that these easy matchups. You could easily use this website if that helps you, or you can even just look at the fixture yourself and identify, okay, they got Richmond coming up. Let's start jumping on them, guys. So that's all I really wanted to highlight for this week. Final thing I need to do is just look at what my pre-trades are for this week. So I've got a couple things in mind. Can sort of play a straight bet, or I can sort of play a bit risky. So let's talk about the risky one first. So obviously trading out Harry Sheezel, and I think I was trading out likes of a Harley Reid, and I was going. Oops, that's not going to work. Luke Ryan. And then I was grabbing Oliver on the other side. So I still got my upgrade either side. So gained about 100k. So that gave me nearly 200k to go from Reid to an Oliver. And still had 2k remaining. Not too bad there. I think Ryan's going to have a really good week. So just looking at his run just quickly. Fremantle. So got St Kilda, Collingwood, and then Melbourne into his bye. So really like to look at that. Awesome buys we've spoken about, so that really helps my buy structure. Jumping off a Sheezel, where I'm quite heavily in around 12 as well. Am jumping on Oliver, who is around 14, which is a little bit disappointing, but you got to take the value where you can, so I'm not going to pass that up just because my buyer says no. So I really like these trades. There's every chance that I do save the cash though and go with the likes of a Fisher instead and throw him in my forward line. So that would probably be better in terms of my structure, because without Reid, I'm having to rely on the likes of a Campbell or Garcia on field in my forward line, just because I don't have someone reliable there. Whereas if I trade in the Fisher, then he just sort of floats into that D6 and I'm not running any rookies in there. So that's sort of where I'm leaning towards, is like that's probably the better play in terms of minimizing rookies on field in the worst spots, whereas I can run these 3 midfielders quite convincingly. It's just maybe D6 is maybe the other issue. No, sorry, it wouldn't be, because I'm getting Oliver in, so I'd only have 2 rookies in the midfield zone, and then obviously one of these guys will be thrown back, so I'd only be running these 3 rookies, which is ideal. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Yeah, the only other way I'm looking at it is, what was my other trade? It was pretty straight back, sort of one up, one down. Let's just reset that a little bit. So I think it was a Graham and a where is he? Where are you? Thompson down, Harvey Thomas, and then sort of just going Oliver, and then I was picking up a rookie who I think I was going Reveal at this point in time. Leaves me 5k, pretty stock standard. Gets off a rookie that needs to go, and gets off a dead rookie who isn't playing anymore. So if he comes back, then I hold him. Obviously, he's going to make some more coin. Easy matchup this week, so hopefully he's back. But not super confident. He wasn't even the emergency in the game last weekend, so pretty disappointing there. Got some money on his head. But I could also do something similar if a Sweet isn't named. So if he isn't named, then I could probably just jump off him. There's probably no point holding on to him if he isn't not named. Even the likes of a Reid, I could trade out a Reid if I wanted to. So I don't know. Got a lot to weigh up this week, because I really do like the options of a Fisher. Just given he's gone back to tons. Awesome role. Looks to be a bit more secure back there now. Obviously, price is definitely right. 650k. Going to make a lot of coin from here. Break even's really good. His run isn't too bad in terms of defend. Oh, I think it is bad, actually. That's the thing I was weighing up. Sorry, where am I looking? Let's have a quick look at the kick-ins for those two guys, McKercher and Fisher. So Fisher is the main kick-in taker at the moment. McKercher is slowly just behind. And we're looking at main kick-ins, guys. So for North, it is Essendon and Port. So two very harder matchups. So that's probably the only thing that is scaring me off at the moment. However, you're looking at this GWS are a neutral matchup. Gold Coast Suns were a neutral matchup. Did score 100 against them, but St Kilda are a super easy matchup. He did score 100 against them as well. So super hard to tell. It's just obviously a riskier play going with that, whereas I could trade into a Luke Ryan. Yes, it probably makes things a little bit trickier next week in terms of my trades, only having the 2k, but I think I get the instant reward there, so I might lean that way and just watch and see Fisher for another week or two. Also doesn't really suit the buy in terms of round 12, so yeah, hopefully I'll just throw those trades in again, and then we can see what my structure will be like. Who else was it again? Ryan. And it was Oliver. Confirm that, throw that there. And this is how we'll sort of structure up. Obviously I'll fix up in terms of pricing, but Oliver just comes straight in here. Obviously Graham goes off field. Closely probably comes on. Sharp stays on field. It's just this sort of F6 spot, which is a frustrating one. So, and the problem is this week as well that these two play at the exact same time, so I won't even be able to loop between them. It would probably, rely on Harvey Thomas playing who plays first, watching him go emergency. If he scores well, or he could even be the sub again, who knows, or even dropped, then I could sort of loop on. But Garcia has Fremantle this week, so that's a tougher matchup. Or you got a Campbell who has Brisbane Lions. So nothing really clear there. But it could be very short-term pain in terms of just, running one of these guys this week at the end of the day. If they put up a, 40 to 50, that's only minimal points to, those top-line guys where they're putting up 70s. So minimal points for maximum output, elsewhere where, Sheasel may go another 70 or, 60 or 90, where Luke Ryan could go anywhere up to 130-ish. I don't know, plenty to play around with, trying to be a bit more aggressive because I need to make up some ground and get this back to a respectable rank, I think. So, got to throw some haymakers out there and try and make up some rank. But I think I'll leave that for today and we'll get into some captain options and some more trade-out targets in the next video. So, hopefully you had a good week going, guys, and hopefully your team's been travelling better than mine. But yeah, happy trading for now and I'll talk to you later. Bye.